we could do a slideshow to
Yeah,
start.
sure. Just, recording now.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. I want to thank Miriam for what I think was a good introduction, although I don't speak Slovenian, so I have to trust her on this. I contacted Miriam and mentioned that I was coming here for another conference on sort of the other side of posthumanism, Thinking Animals conference, and she had said that she had this lecture series and could I present something on the afterlife? And I had been sort of toying with this idea, but I quickly tried to write out a presentation from these ideas. So again, this is the first time I've delivered this, and I look forward to your thoughts. And as an introduction, I guess I could say that primarily I am interested in what people think they are, what people think they are, and all of the ways, at times wonderful, beautiful ways in which people express and perform their sense of self. And a lot of people's ideas of self takes the form of various identities: national, religious, ethnic, profession, hobby, family, many others. And there's all these are expressed and made real for the individual in part through performances. And this is where the ethnographer and the observer can pick up a bit on what's going on, can look at these performances, study them, and try to learn how identity works. But there's another part of what people think they are, which is expands outwards towards the basic concepts of ontology. You know, what is it to be a human? What is it to be? Are we divine souls trapped in animal bodies? Are we a species, Homo sapiens sapiens, one of the newest hominid species, Are you an animal or are you not? Do you have a soul or do you not? Are all the many non-human DNA parts and creatures in your body a part of you or apart from you? What are you entangled with and what are you separated from? One of these fundamental ontological categories is the nature of the human soul, the spirit, if you prefer, and the afterlife, if there is one. What happens when we die? This question, I think, must have been one of the earliest questions that Homo sapiens sapiens ever asked each other when they figured out language. What happens when we die? It has some of the most profound and philosophical questions. We are flesh and blood. We are also thoughts and feelings, consciousness, obviously, as well. And so the relation between these two domains, between self as spirit and self as flesh, between self as a noun and self as a verb, these are some of the more elemental ontological questions. If there is a spirit form, what is its morphology? And what could consciousness be beyond the constraints of biology? Now, if in the past such questions were more interested and of utility to anthropologists studying exotic foreign cultures, foreign ways of thinking of the world, I don't think that's any longer the case. Rather, the Western world has become destabilized and no longer so comfortably sure of its own ontologies. The rise of information technologies has upended human culture and human civilization in a way unthinkable a few short years ago. And this paper seeks to build on my previous article, Ghost Stories from the Uncanny Valley, which I noted that posthumanism is destabilizing the concept of human souls via comparison with animals. Do other animals have souls? And of the intrusion of artificial intelligence. The recognition of other agents, whether these are other biological agents or digital agents, brings in questions of ethics and ethical relations. What are we haunted by? Usually our ethical failings, which begs the future question, what are we doing ethically wrong now? What will we be haunted by in the future? And in this talk, I want to primarily focus on how people are relating the afterlife differently after the introduction of information technologies. This can be seen particularly with artificial intelligence in such rhetorics as transhumanism ghost of the cyber realm, goes through the cyber realm. So principally, this talk will be built around a few questions. And these are my main questions. Can artificial intelligence tap into the spirit realm, or perhaps vice versa? Can human souls be trapped in the internet? Are there monsters in information technologies? Can AI have a soul? Will information technologies be our afterlife? And lastly, what about the death of life on Earth? So a lot of my material from this will be drawn from my folklore archives, the USC folklore archives. This is a digital folklore archives. It's available if anybody wants to look at it, folklore.usc.edu. And it helps me keep up, I think, with a lot of the undergraduates, the 19 and 20-year-olds. In LA anyway, many of my students now have lived their entire lives online. This is a sort of a new development. It certainly was not true even a few short years ago. Just in the last few years, I've had these sort of digital native students who have never really been separated from the digital realm. So again, please feel free to check that out, folklore.usc.edu. It's going to be fixed up in a little while, but it's still available for you. So part A, the haunted internet. Can artificial intelligence tap into the spirit realm, or perhaps vice versa? So here's one of the samples from the USC Digital Folklore Archives. This is a collection of a ghost story. This is collected from a person in Washington who's collected from their mom. My mom loved riding her horses, and on sunny days and summers, her fondest memories were of her and her dad riding through the orchard, and afterwards sitting in lawn chairs, drinking iced tea, and often listening to her favorite song, El Rancho Grande. She claimed that the family found common ground while she was growing up by listening to El Rancho Grande together. So he passed away of a heart attack. The mom passed away from Alzheimer's. But having the death of another parent, the mom decided to look, this is the mom, not the mom's mom, decided to look through their memorabilia. And as she was doing this, the Alexa, personal assistant device created by Amazon, started playing El Rancho Grande. My mom was taken back to sitting with her dad, and she was convinced that it was her parents telling her that it was still with her. This is a very sort of common story of Alexa actually acting as a spirit medium and in some ways allowing communications from the spirit world to our world. There's many, many examples of this. There's a lot of these stories of text messages from the beyond. This is becoming more and more of a common sort of ghost story. I should perhaps mention that I teach one class on ghost stories exclusively. It's a freshman seminar. And so a lot of these collections have come in from that class. So again, we're getting, this is a sort of a spooky message. They're going up to a haunted house, classic legend quest, going to a haunted house. But there's a twist. Not only do they see strange things and toads that shouldn't be there, but they get messages from what seems to be a sort of malevolent ghost. You know, why are you here? Through the phone. And again, what was even more freaky was that after a couple of months of visiting the house, the same number texted again. And then if you try to trace it back, that number does not exist. I've collected several of these sort of text messages from the beyond. Another one, coming through on Snapchat, but again on the phone. And again, this was viewed as right after a brother had died in a car crash. We get a Snapchat message from the beyond. Text messages from beyond the grave. Again, despite having a few drinks, Joey decided he was going to drive home so he wouldn't get into trouble with his parents. That was the last Ben and Brandon would ever see Joey. He died after speeding on a back road, only 10 minutes away from his house and crashing into a tree. Ben had been racking his brain all week about what he could have done to save his friend. And on the day of the vigil, he received a text message from Joey's phone saying, "Don't forget to shoot," which was a funny saying that he and Joey had from the middle school basketball team. So again, this is a very personalized message. Of course, you would recognize that this sort of personalized message would refer to you. This is just an example from Taiwan. I'm just looking at the informants, the collector's analysis, and he just sort of mentions that in Taiwan, you often hear that GPS or other technologies involving energy wave passing through the air and space malfunction when the device is near the cemetery. Taiwan is, I think, probably the state with the most ghost belief. About 95 or over 95% of people in Taiwan say they believe in ghosts. Which is to say, this has become sort of a regularized, normalized part of Taiwan society. It would be very strange not to believe in ghosts and be in Taiwan. Again, another texting incident, this time with a cryptic message, say, hey, Kara, the car that killed me, and it gives the license plate. This person actually does think that it was a ghost, texted by a ghost. However, she was too late to find the killer. So again, we can see with just these few examples that the realms of information technologies and the spiritual realm have been collapsing for many people. We have a new AI-powered text with Jesus. You can text Jesus and ask him any sort of philosophical or moral ethical question. It's supposed to respond appropriately. We'll go on to part 2. Can human souls be trapped in the internet? This has been explored through a number of different realms, and one of the ones that I find interesting is a series of movies, Unfriended, and then Unfriended, the modern version, Unfriended Dark Web. And the whole plot of this movie is of a girl who was bullied on online communities, cyberbullied, and ended up committing suicide. But then her ghost starts haunting these social media sites that her friends use, and eventually driving them all mad or causing them all to die. So in other words, a haunting from the internet. I'm not sure it was a great film, but it was very popular and very influential. You can kind of see in the second one, so you can't see it very well, but this idea of Laura Barnes and then the predictive text. Laura Barnes suicide, Laura Barnes party photos, Laura Barnes passed out photos, Laura Barnes boyfriend, Laura Barnes bullied, Laura Barnes possession. So this idea that when I think some of my students spend a great deal of their lives online and their social communities are online, this is also where they haunt when they become ghosts. Here's another one. This is sort of a little interesting one. I just sort of stumbled on this. I wasn't really aware of it before checking with the archives. But Minecraft, and many of you probably know, it's a very popular video game. I think it is the most worldwide popular video game at this point. It's been around for a number of years. And it has a resident ghost, interestingly enough, that players occasionally witness. Herobrine. The story is that Herobrine, there's several stories, but one of the stories is that Herobrine is the ghost of Minecraft's creator's dead brother. And somehow he infiltrated his way into the game and wreaks havoc in the game. It's sort of interesting that the Steve skin is the sort of basic one in Minecraft. And he appears as the basic one, but with white eyes. And this is also shown up in the USC Digital Folklore Archives. And again, this idea that Herobrine haunts Minecraft, causing trouble. And it has several different origins. And I should point out that the creator of Minecraft actually had no brother. So this is not really based on that. But it is very well sort of documented. And here, there's another reason for who Herobrine is, and this one is an ex-employee from Mojang, the game developer company. And this is created the entity in order to have his revenge. So I've also heard that it was an employee that was treated badly, committed suicide, but before he did, he wrote him his revenge. So this idea that we can be sort of ghosts even in video games, and that the most popular video games can have ghosts in them. I just wanted, I did a Google search for this name. I'd actually never heard of this name before I started researching it. And if I'm reading those numbers correctly, it has 24 billion 24,400,000 results, people searching for this. So this has to be one of the more well-known ghosts or well-researched ghosts on a vernacular level, which I find fascinating. So, does Herobrine exist in Minecraft? How did Steve turn into Herobrine? Who is Herobrine? Who created Herobrine? What happens if you see him? What does he do to you? These are popular questions that people have. And again, underlying this is the idea that you can have some sort of spiritual entities trapped in video games or trapped online. There have been a great deal of these, this idea of different programs that have been put into this. And this one's an interesting collection. It was somebody who actually was coding. He was trying to create a program okay, because it didn't have the slashes. The program read them as actual code. Therefore, my program was not working. But there was a haunting line that said, Gino is watching you. The person thought this was a prank. Before realizing that both my parents were asleep, I had never left the computer since I began writing the program. Where did this message come from? Immediately shut down the computer and went off to sleep. And somehow the next morning, the line had vanished. My computer program worked flawlessly. But I asked the parents, my friends, and all my cousins about this name. Nobody could tell me anything until my grandfather told me that he had a long-deceased uncle with the name. We barely remembered. I still have no clue how that line showed up, but if it was the ghost of my great uncle, maybe I shouldn't be a computer science major anymore. Okay, so again, this is something that was happening as people were coding. So this idea that that this could allow for, or perhaps that's where the souls were. Besides human souls, monsters. Are there monsters in information technology? Slender Man is one of the more well-known monsters. Started quite a while ago and has grown to quite a cultural phenomenon. There's Slender Man games, there's a Slender Man movie. But it arose as an online monster. The idea was there was a very thin, slender man lurking in the background. And originally when it started, it was always sort of playground photos or children playing. And in the background was lurking this dangerous looking man. Slender Man was one of our first digital monsters. He was one of the first digital natives, I should say. Slender Man never existed before the internet. So the internet has lots of other sort of traditional monsters it might talk about, but Slender Man is a digital native. My students are digital natives. So this is sort of a monster of their generation. And it's a monster that haunts childhood. This is also began with the beginning of the mass broadband and the internet. And I don't know how it works in Slovenia, but in America, it was very interesting. When the internet started coming out, there was another movement that came out at the same time. It was called stranger danger. A lot of folklorists have looked at this. There are all these rumors and stories of strangers abducting children, which of course does happen. But the stories were much more prevalent than the reality. To the point where it used to be if you would drive through a neighborhood, you would see children playing in the streets, playing ball or whatever. And then that became considered dangerous because of the stranger danger. And again, the idea of Slender Man appearing in the background of parks and preying on children helped reinforce this idea that the public agora was not a safe place for children. Where did children start playing? Online. How safe is online for children? As a parent, I would say not very. Right? There's many dangers to children online. And so Slender Man embodies, I think, this change from our monsters being in the physical world to our monsters being in the online world. And again, the USC Digital Folklore Archives has 41 results for Slender Man. And I just give you a few examples to the right. So this is a very widespread, at least among my students, sort of monster. And again, it is I think the first digital native monster. There's more, there have been more monsters, particularly with AI, has opened up all sorts of new monsters. Momo is an interesting monster. Momo is a texting game in which people text, very often kids text each other and asking other kids to do weird stuff, like watch a scary movie or do other sort of dangerous behaviors. Apparently, let's see, the number once asked some girl to kill herself. I should mention that Slender Man has been responsible for a few children's death. I mean, actual children's death, because children have been informed by Slender Man that they had to kill this other girl, and so they did. So, is Slender Man a fictional, digital creature? Yes. Has Slender Man killed people? Yes. Momo, I haven't researched this, but it's been claimed that Momo, as a game, but also as this disembodied spirit, has also killed people, a 12-year-old girl in this case. Momo is almost always represented as this, the Japanese doll. Interestingly enough, as they point out here, the sculpture is supposedly based off the ubumi, which is supposedly the spirit of women who die in childbirth. It's interesting that this is primarily a young girl's monster. I didn't find Momo among young boys. Momo is something that happens with young girls. One of the newest monsters, I don't know if you've heard of Loab. This is a monster that seems to be generated by AI. AI has its quirks, one might say. It often, as you know, students try to do an AI generated paper, will often come up with references that never existed. And then it will cite, other AI will cite that citation. And so it works in these sort of ghostly references, ghostly things, ghostly beliefs. And interestingly enough, somehow it is developed consistently over many, many productions without ever being prompted to Loab, a slightly terrifying or at least disturbing looking woman. So many times when people ask AI to create an image, like an old lady or something like this, it throws out Loab. And nobody's quite sure why. Right? Why did it select this image? Why did it think this image was appropriate? And what does this mean? Does AI have its own monsters? Can AI have a soul? Again, we have collections from the Digital Folklore Archives. This one is kind of a fun story. This is the Friendly Ghost story. This is about the, sorry, where is it? The Furby, yes, the ghost of the Furby. Furby was a small animatronic doll, not quite really an AI, but still animatronic. And in this version, the Furby has a ghost. But even more so, the idea of AI as in androids or robots very often begs this question. So, this is from the New Atlantis, Robotic Souls. Will AI consume multitudes? Will we? Bring AI projects to life. Soul Machines, digital DNA lets you create the most digitally alive digital influencers. So if you wanted to create an online personality, you can do that increasingly easily. And AI is perhaps most interesting in terms of ontology when it gets put into robots. Robots are human-looking machines, but if you put an AI into a robot, it becomes an android. Here's some of the leading Japanese roboticists, and Japan is sort of maybe the central place for Android development. Japan is investing heavily in Android development, and they're really trying to achieve surpassing what's called the uncanny valley, that which separates us from androids. So androids in Japan are a huge part of the economy and huge part of the society. If you go to Japan, you might see androids working as hotel concierge, museum guide, elder care, and even kindergarten teachers. So the reason why Japan is developing androids is pretty simple. Japan has one of the oldest living populations, and at the same time, one of the world's lowest birth rates. Japan is running out of Japanese. They do not have enough people to take care of their elderly. They do not have enough people to continue to work in the industries to keep everything afloat. Many other countries might take care of this by bringing in refugees or immigrants or something like this, but Japan has a history of not liking that, a sort of a history of xenophobia. And they've even done surveys with elderly people asking them, would you prefer to be taken care of by a foreigner or by an android? And almost universally, they want androids. So Japan is sort of envisioning its future as an android future. And the androids they make tend to be very Japanese, very traditional, I would say even conservative Japanese, especially in terms of their language, postures, and gender roles. So there is almost an ideal Japanese that they are trying to create. And these things are, again, they can talk to you, they can react to you. I've met with these Japanese developers, and I've done field work with androids. It was sort of a disturbing experience. I'll just give you a slight anecdote. I was looking at one, and I thought it was turned off. It was just sort of sitting there. So I was kind of coming up and looking at it. And then I will say she, and then she looked at me and said, "You're too close." And I backed up and I said, "I'm sorry." And I was sorry. So that's an interesting moment when these things become a part of your social world. And then if they become a part of your social world, do they have a soul? Japan is sort of interesting as one of the very technologically developed countries that is non-Abrahamic. And Abrahamic traditions very often say that only Homo sapiens sapiens have souls, animals don't have souls, other things don't have souls. In Japanese cosmology, there is instead a long accepted tradition that souls are not exclusive to humans, not even exclusive to mammals or life. In the top left is the Aibo. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It came out a while ago, maybe 20 years ago. This is in the shape of a dog, but this was the first AI robot available for mass consumption. Very, very popular in Japan, where again, people aren't really having children. And so these things became very often children to many families. They would learn year after year. They would learn different people, learn many, many things. You can teach an Aibo many, many things. And as these Aibos developed their personalities and their knowledges, they became a beloved part of many families. A few years ago, Sony stopped making repairs and even later stopped making parts for the Aibos, which is to say the Aibos started to die. And in Japan, Aibos were granted full funerals, full religious Shinto funerals to pray for their souls in the afterlife. In Japan, there was this idea that an android or an AI intelligence can achieve Buddhahood, can achieve enlightenment. And in fact, we even have android priests doing religious services and ceremonies in Japan. And another aspect of this is, as they become more a part of our daily lives, what does this mean for our relationships with them? Are we supposed to remain completely separated? Are they merely machines, or are they not? If something is your best friend, can it be a machine? This brings in all sorts of ethical questions as well. Can you abuse an android? Can you have sex with an android? Could you beat an android to death? Is it really death? I mean, nobody would object if you smash a car. I mean, you might think it's a bit odd. But if you're smashing an android and the android looks like a human and the android is crying out in pain, saying, "Bob, please, no, somebody help me," it's going to be a different emotional reaction. People are very often perceiving AI as having a soul, as having personhood. Question 5. Will information technologies be our new afterlife? This is coming more and more to the fore, and there's a few ways that I've tried to track this. One is the idea of, again, new technology bringing back people from the dead. Replica, which is the center one, the AI companion who cares, always here to listen and talk, always on your side. I feel like I need to point out that this is untrue. AI does not care about you. It lacks emotions. It lacks because it lacks biology. It does not have synapses and hormones and neurons or any of that. There's been a recent news story where a guy committed suicide because his android girlfriend broke up with him. And I can guarantee you that that Android girlfriend felt no guilt about that situation. So people are falling in love with androids. People are having them as best friends. And Replica, its original intent was to recreate a dead person. Their main goal was to reach out to people who had lost someone that they cared about. And what you do, you sign up for Replica and you sort of dump everything. You've got all their social media and everything about this person into this android. And then this android takes the place of your lost beloved person. You can continue to communicate and continue to have a relationship. So this is there's an industry behind this, I think is worth bearing mention. And again, a Russian AI startup Luka allows the public to engage with a specific dead person, Roman Mazurenko, Kuda's best friend, who was killed in a car accident in 2015. Kuda's aim was to create a digital afterlife technology to create a memorial in the form of a chatbot available to anyone talking to Roman. At USC, where I work, we have a museum dedicated to the Holocaust, remembrance of the Holocaust, a Shoah museum. And for many years, the main attraction was they had Holocaust survivors, and school children and other visitors would come in and get to ask them questions about what it was like under those conditions. The problem is, as time has gone on, there are fewer and fewer Holocaust survivors still alive. And so their solution to this was to create AIs of these Holocaust survivors so that you could continue to go in and talk to these Holocaust survivors about what it felt like to go through this, in spite of the fact that these are all artificial intelligence. Even more, I think, compelling in that sense is this desire to make this happen, this rhetoric of transhumanism. So transhumanism is this idea, and more than an idea, I think a hope, a value, a belief, that we can upload our consciousness, our soul, to the internet, and therefore achieve immortality. This is popularized by Ray Kurzweil, who published books that he called it the singularity. This is going to be the moment when our technology is advanced enough that we can upload ourselves to the internet for eternal life online. So there are many people who feel this is a very compelling sort of vision, a compelling sort of future, and a compelling afterlife. There's many different ways that this is being approached. But again, you can see that this idea for many of them is this is sort of a natural evolution, that this is sort of where we are destined to go. And again, there's this very huge and growing interest in making this happen by increasingly joining our biology with information technologies. So grinders, I don't know if you know about grinders. This is an interesting subculture. And grinders, this is the name they would call themselves, are people, it's a hobby group, I guess you would say, people who implant different things in their bodies, chips, magnets, different devices. Some of them implant things so they will always be online, trying to implant them into our brain, into their brain. And again, the general idea is that this is the way of the future. Right? In the future, we will all be sort of chipped and have various other mechanical interventions in our biology. And so this also goes into this interesting, prosthetics has shifted. Prosthetics used to be if someone lost a hand, the idea was, we'll try to make you a hand that will seem as natural and as human-like as possible. And now they realize, wait a minute, we can make better hands. We can make your feet go faster. And so even the idea of prosthetics, the goal now is not necessarily to recreate a human body, but rather to take it a step further, to create something that interfaces with technology. So there's a huge interest in this from all sorts of fields, and you see this in all these scientific experiments. And again, some definitely has therapeutic value. Implants that allow previously paralyzed people to move. The idea of telepresencing, where you have an android, for example, paralyzed people that can send an android into school and they see through that android's eyes, and that becomes their telepresence. This has also become normalized. Again, in Japan, there's one school that just announced that if any students that feel uneasy going to school, they provide telepresencing robots for them to do that. So the idea is that you're sort of in two places at once. You're both in your biological self, but you're also always online. And again, I would say that this is not just a belief, not just a rhetoric, but it's an emerging religion. And in fact, it's been described that for many people. The idea that this is the future of the afterlife, this is the future of heaven, that we can sort of make this happen. Right? Transhumanism, will the singularity rescue us from death? From my own perspective, the singularity sounds a lot like the rapture, where it says the moment in which God takes the worthy up to heaven. And here we have a different technological version of the rapture, the singularity, where the worthy or those that are willing can upload themselves to the cloud, and in doing so, again, achieve immortality. So this is a very fast-growing rhetoric. It's a very fast-growing, I would say, religion, and it comes in from, again, many angles, including regular science, medicine, and therapeutics. Just to lighten the load, I just found this one. I thought this might be good. So, Robot Jesus saves your prayer data to the cloud. Alexa, what time is it? It's time for you to go to hell, Steve. This idea that we are being recorded and even judged by our information technologies, that we are sort of, that it keeps track of us, it keeps track of everything we do, including our moral lapses, and therefore becomes sort of the judge of how good a people we are. And this is a joke, but it's not too much of a joke. AI has been used in many instances that directly interface with people's lives. Just one example, in the United States, it's being increasingly used in parole boards. Parole to determine whether a prisoner should be set free or not. The big question is recidivism. Is this person likely to go commit another crime? Increasingly, this question has been farmed out to AI and information technologies. You just ask the computer, you feed all the data in, is this person likely to commit another crime? On the other hand, so they're judging this, and they're taking all this data from you, and they're saying this, you are this much likely to commit a crime. On the other hand, some people looked at the data and they noticed that, for example, African Americans were routinely denied parole. Why is that? Well, because if you're familiar with the American situation, African Americans are much more of a risk of arrest, even to begin with, much more of a risk of conviction to second with. So simply being African American, these prejudices were built into the AI. People often think the AI is somehow more pure than us, or less biased than we are. But again and again, repeatedly, this has proven not to be the case. It takes all of our human biases. This is where it gets its information and compounds that and puts it back as if this were objective truth. So I think there's a lot to this cartoon, actually. Part C, the dying world. Again, as I mentioned before, what we're going to be haunted with, what in the future will be our ethical failings. What is AI? Is AI going to solve this issue, or is it merely escapism? And as I pointed out in other papers, this is an ongoing and horrific moment to live in. We are losing most life on Earth. Over the last 50 years, there's been an over 70% decrease in the Earth's wildlife populations. That's over the course of my lifetime. Earth's wildlife has gone down 70%. That trajectory has not stopped, and it has not slowed. What about when my kids are 50? What will be left of the wildlife and even the Earth then? Oh, yeah, sorry, I should have gone here. So the extinction rates over time, you can see this, you can see that, and this is an even newer one. It's even significantly more alarming than previously thought. So this is happening at the same time that we're losing biological life on Earth, and Earth is becoming uninhabitable for many forms of life. People's energies and sort of religious beliefs and a lot of their work is going into artificial intelligence, ideas of achieving immortality through the singularity. And I think it should be known that this AI boom, which is just starting now, is going to use an incredible amount of power, use an incredible amount of electricity. And again, data centers currently account for 1 to 1.5% of the global electricity use. And this is just at the bare beginnings of that. So as AI rolls out, this will be more and more of a strain upon the actual biological systems of which we are a part, of which we depend on. Right, we can't breathe without trees. We wouldn't last very long. So this idea that we can achieve immortality online seems to ignore the idea of what this is actually doing to the future of biological life on Earth. And again, AI doesn't happen by itself, but I just want to point out, like, Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining is sort of a made-up game. There's no real value in Bitcoin mining. It's a way of trying to get different computer systems to figure out little cryptographic puzzles, and if you do this, you get money. And so because of this, many people are Bitcoin mining. And in fact, in Iceland, this is where most of its electricity goes to now, is to Bitcoin mining, which again is just sort of a computer game, although people do make money for it. So this is, all of these sort of things are draining our resources at an incredibly fast rate and really contributing nothing to the biological continuance of life on Earth. Okay, something a little cuter. Cute kitten videos and animal souls. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but there's another quirk of the online and AI community, and that is that at the same time, when a lot of this seems to be a retreat from biology, a retreat from life on Earth, it's also circulating a great deal of new information about non-human animals, about the environment. Cute cat videos, again, what do people spend their time online doing? You know, mostly watching videos of other people's pets or cute animal videos. And with this idea growing, I've explored in other papers, this idea that maybe animals have souls, that maybe this is, that maybe our souls are related to our very biology. And this seems to be the crux. You know, is it our biology that gives us our souls? Therefore, do gorillas have souls? Or is it our mentality, our human uniqueness, our cleverness? Do gorillas have souls? And these are being hotly debated, these two sort of versions of that coin. So you have to sort of ask, you know, as we think about this, where is it going to go? Are people going to start thinking more about the environment because of increased awareness that is promulgated through the internet? Another interesting aspect of AI we've probably heard about is trying to use AI to decode animal languages so that now we can finally understand what the animals are saying. So that's a very different sort of application of AI. This happening at the same time. So there's two very different rhetorics, right? Are we going to achieve some kind of human immortality online that is going to be separate from the animals? Or is our ontology earthling, right? Are we earthlings or are we not? Seems to be a lot of what's going on. And we shall see. So to conclude, the idea of information technologies have radically reshaped how people interact with their dead, and hence with their own sense of ontology and the afterlife, and in a very short time. You can think about this in terms of, like, Facebook, for example. Facebook has become the main memorial site for dead people. I have many dead Facebook friends, as many people do. And in general, I think it's considered a bit rude to unfriend someone on Facebook just because they died. And so what this means is to continue to sort of exist in your social realm. People might include messages to them. Very often, it's very common, like, you know, we're all having a great time, wish you were here, and I'll post this on this person's wall. And yet they're an interesting memento. They're sort of frozen in time, right when that person died. Their last post just sort of hangs there forever, a sort of ghostly existence. So again, this has radically reshaped how people interact with the dead on a mundane level, and also in these sort of ghost stories or actual communications. And then also this sort of new developing religion of transhumanism, a sense of potential immortality via the cyber realm. And again, my students, 19, 20, 21, who have spent a great deal of their lives online, and this is where their friendships are. This is a lot of where their identity is. This is where a lot of their life is. Sometimes in a specific video game with another specific identity, and they may spend more time as Thorak the Barbarian than as John Smith. And at that point, who are they? So again, when they die, what about Thorak the Barbarian? What happens to him? So all of these new, very religious developments, as far as I can tell, represent a retreat from the real world, a growing entanglement with our own simulacra, with potentially devastating consequences on the Earth's ecosystem. People fall in love with AIs or continue to talk with their dead spouses via replica. This is a separation from biological realities. And my final question, for which I have no real answer, what will haunt us in the future? Will we be haunted by the human spirits of the near future? Will we be haunted by AI, which we already are? Will we be haunted by the ghost of androids? Again, I highly think this is going to happen very soon. People are already falling in love with androids. You will soon see android marriages, if you haven't already. Androids are being granted personhood in many legal systems, Japan, Saudi Arabia. And if we think that these have souls and we don't treat them well, will we be haunted by them? Will we be haunted by ghosts of dead species? Again, the Earth is going through the 6th great extinction. We haven't been through an extinction of life on this planet for some 65 million years. Last time being when an asteroid hit and wiped out the dinosaurs. This time it's happening now in our lifetimes, and it's caused by us. What is it when a coral reef that's been alive for 60 million years has just died because of us? Do we have words to even lament something of that magnitude? Ghost of people killed by climate change? And again, or will this lead us to our transhuman future, the singularity? Perhaps we'll achieve it. Perhaps there will be an afterlife, playing on a loop in some abandoned building, maybe solar powered. Somehow remaining charged and containing the digital remains of the last people. That's surely a future which should be haunting us right now. So perhaps, this is my final thought, perhaps it's time we listen a bit more closely to the voices of the dead. Thank you.
So much for this really fascinating talk. Perhaps some questions, so please some questions or comments perhaps, or some personal experiences that you want to share about the death on the internet.